Our journey continues. Now we have reached Sarang, an alternative school in Attappadi, Kerala. And look at the picture. A couple with their child. Who are these people? These are Gopalakrishnan and Vijayalakshmi. Yes, they started the school. They were a couple at Akali Panchayat of Attappadi. They were a teacher couple, both of them were teachers. Gopalakrishnan and his wife Vijayalakshmi were teachers. They started a school called Sarang at Akali Panchayat of Attappadi in Plakkad. Let's continue our journey. And first of all, we can go back. We can have a flashback. We better have a flashback to the historical events which paved the way for the establishment of such a great experimental school. Okay, this is a great experimental school. The school was a product of some experiments done by this couple. So we can look at the historical events which brought such a great school into the list of alternative schools. Sorry. In 1982, Gopalakrishnan and Vijayalakshmi joined as government teachers in Attappadi. They joined a public school as teachers. And they were teaching at that school. Then they were gifted with 3 children, Gautam, Kannadi and Unniyarcha. Even when they were working in that government school, they were frustrated, just as we have seen in the case of those professionals in Maharashtra. The couple, Gopalakrishnan and Vijayalakshmi, were disappointed or frustrated to feel that the formal education was nothing else to do with except making the pupils prepare for a job. They realized that the formal educational system was just for making the students able to secure a job in their future. Nothing else was not there. And both of them became so sad. And in 1988, both of them resigned from their post as government teachers. In 1982, they joined the school and they had been teaching there for 6 years. During these 6 years, they were thinking about quitting the post because they were not able to enjoy teaching there. As they realized that formal educational institutions were focusing on preparing the students just for securing a job. A vocational aim was, only vocational aim was there. No creativity was being enriched. No practical knowledge was provided. Nothing, nothing interesting was there. So in 1988, they just resigned from their post and started their dream school at the forest area of Akali Panchayat of Attappadi. Actually, they were discussing the matter each day. They were sharing their dream of starting an exclusive school, a special school, a different school. And 1988, they resigned from their post and started their school at Akali Panchayat of Attappadi. The school was named Sarang. The first student was no one else but their own son Gautam. He was the first child, first student, and later other local children also started enrolling. Gradually, it was getting some popularity among the local people. Other parents also started sending their children to the school. There was no formal curriculum or rigid methodologies. Everything was organized naturally, just like at Kannada. No formal curriculum was there. No rigid methodologies were there. Everything happened in a natural manner, just like we are living a casual life. Just like in the actual life, just like the day-to-day life activities in our life. Everything was happening or everything was occurring in a natural manner. No curriculum, no formal curriculum was there. So it was going in a smooth manner. Other parents also were attracted by the activities and they also started getting admission for their children. The place was a hill area with few trees and the soil had become just as desert. Though it was a forest area, it was just like a desert. Because there were no trees. As there were no trees, the soil had become just as desert. They believe that education should start here. That is to teach the children how to survive. The forest, it was a forest, but it was not a forest because there were only a few trees. Actually, no tree was there. So the soil had become just as desert. So the couple decided to start education there. If you are able to change a desert into a normal place, then you can survive anything. So, by looking at this concept, they started teaching the students at Sarang. They started afforesting the major part of the area by making use of organic farming strategies. So the forest was not a forest. Actually, it was a forest, but there were no trees, and the soil had become just like desert. And they started afforesting the major part of the area. They started planting trees. They made their children, students, plant trees here and there. And they just made use of organic farming strategies or techniques. So they started by planting trees. That is to survive a difficult situation, at the same time to protect our environment. So the education at Sarang started by planting trees in that forest, which had just become just like a desert. And they started learning traditional art forms as they believed that art has no boundary. Just like in Kannau, they started learning traditional art forms, and they believe that art has no boundary. If you go with your art to another country, you will be recognized there too. That is their concept. So they just made their students learn the traditional art forms which were popular at the locality. And they were made believe that with their own art forms they could survive. So again, you can see some natural teaching as we have seen in the case of Kana. And they learn biology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, and social science from the surroundings itself. Each day, the teachers were Gopalakrishnan and his wife. They would bring their children to the outside of the school, to the locality, to the surrounding areas. Then the students would learn each and everything from nature: biology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, and social science. Everything they started learning from their surroundings. They learn language by interacting and discussing the version of language which they felt more comfortable for them. In normal educational institutions, actually you have to discuss in the written version of your language, in the standard version of your language. But here at Sarang, children can interact and discuss with others in their own slang, in their own dialect, in their own colloquial language. And this is something interesting because according to the deficit theory put forth by Rebecca Eller, if you give opportunity for your students to speak in their own dialect or in their own colloquial language, they will be speaking more and more. You can get wonderful ideas because they will speak openly. And this strategy was there at Sarang. Students could discuss anything in the version of language which they felt comfortable for them. Again, something against the traditional educational concept. But unfortunately, they were forced to close the school in 1995. That means after 7 years. On account of financial struggle and some other issues with staff. Some other staff were there, and they have got some issue with the staff, and they have got some financial struggle too because they had been teachers and they had just resigned from the post and started a school. So they got some financial problems. They fell in some financial problems and they got some issues with their staff. So they were forced to stopped the school in 1995 after 7 years of its commencement. But Gautam, the first student of Sarang, son of the couple, Gopalakrishnan and Vijayalakshmi, returned to Sarang in 2013. Gautam was the first student, we told. He hadn't got any sort of formal education in his life. He was the first student of Sarang. His parents stopped the school in 1995, but after 8 years, Gautam returned to Sarang. And he had got a mission, he had got a desire, he had got a great confidence that he would rebuild Sarang as a rural university. He was the first student, or he was the first alumni of Sarang. His parents were forced to close the school. But even after closing the school, Gautam returned because he had got that much love towards that wonderful school. He had never got any sort of formal education. Though he hadn't got any sort of formal education, he had got great stuff of practical knowledge. So he decided that he would try to make the school, or he would try to rebuild Sarang as a rural university. So he returned in 2013, after 18 years. And still, Sarang is not functioning as an alternative school with regular students. It was closed in 1995, 7 years after its commencement. And after 18 years, the first student, Gautam, came back. He had a dream of rebuilding Sarang into a rural university, but still he is not successful in doing so. It is not functioning as an alternative school with regular students. But Gautam and team organize camps and training programs for those who are in search for some creative and natural learning for their children. I will learn something about deschooling movement later. Some parents are in search of some schools which can provide some creative learning, some natural learning situations for their children. So Gautam and team organize camps and training programs for them. Now it hasn't got any regular educational activities. But if people ask, if people request during the vacation time and during the different span of time, Gautam and his team will organize some camps by including different activities which had been there when he was a child at Sarang. So Sarang is not there now as an alternative school built by Gopalakrishnan and Vijayalakshmi. You can see the picture of Gautam and his family. So he is there still, giving training to those who are in search of some creative educational activities. Thank you.